Onboard computer synchronization.
Now entering the nexus of geekery and guy world. In 3, 2, 1, mark.
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
This is the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. Presented by IJMBooks.com.
Hey, boys and girls, what's going on? This is episode, what are we up to now? 17 of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. I am your host, Ian J. Malone. With me this evening will be my good friend, Mr. Dave Daniels. Scott has the night off. Before we get to Dave, though, you know the drill. We're online at dudesinhyperspace.com. You got questions, comments about the show, you can go there and do all kinds of things, from email us to buy swag, coffee mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, all that jazz. Or, you know, hey, if you want to come on board as a sponsor, just saying, we'd love to have you. Dudesinhyperspace.com is where it's at. We're also on social media, Facebook and Twitter, at The Hyper Dudes. We'll get you to our accounts and pages at either one of those. And then finally, if you want to email us direct, we do that too. dudesinhyperspace@gmail.com. Big weekend on tap this past weekend. It was actual, real sports. Kinda, sorta. Dave Daniels, welcome to the show to talk some NFL draft fallout with me, man. How are you doing?
Doing very well, sir. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's I am betwixt houses right now. So for those keeping score at home, you may hear a little bit more reverb on my voice this evening. It sounds like I'm kind of talking in a cave. It's because, well, I kind of am. We have cleared out all the furniture into the pod, and I'm looking at my computer screen and a mattress that I'm sleeping on in my living room right now. So it's an eventful time in the Malone house, but we're really excited about where we're going. It's just transition, but you've done enough moves in your day. You know how that goes.
So the question becomes, are you the left betwixt or the right betwixt?
I guess I'm right somewhere in the middle, dude. Betwixt. I don't know.
Betwixt the twixt.
Betwixt. So anyway, all right. So we finally had some actual sports on this weekend, and granted, it was the virtual variety, but it did happen. And by all rights, apparently, we were not the only ones who were excited about it. This was, per the ratings reports, the highest-rated NFL draft in history. That would be a big deal under any circumstances, but for my money, I think the real figure comes on day 3, which is typically when most of your average fan starts to tune out. Day 3 was still up 32% from last year. So I don't know about you, Dave, but I mean, that tells me that people are definitely starved for something that they haven't seen before. And the NFL served that up this weekend as only the NFL can do. What was your take on the broadcast? It was different. This was a different format than we were used to.
Yeah.
The virtual thing, it was strange. But what did you think?
You know, I thought it was the best they could do in the circumstances they had. You know, you got a sneak peek into kind of what everyone was doing. You got to see some personality from different people that you don't normally get to see it from, like Bill Belichick. When they went to him, I think it was at the second round, his dog was sitting at the table where they had the live camera. You know, you got to see some personality from people that you don't normally hear from, other than when something's going wrong or they sign somebody, like general managers. A little bit of that was kind of cool, seeing them with their families, you know, getting the chance to see the Dolphins, you know, with Brian Flores and Chris Greer, seeing what happened with them, you know, and how they were doing things. And, you know, I thought for what they did, it was good. You know, the commissioner making fun of himself a little bit with the hashtag Boo the Commission. Of course, they made a charity thing out of it, which is always a good deal. I thought it was the best they could do under circumstances. And I tuned in for the first 2 days, and third day I was out of it. I found something else to do on Saturday. So,
yeah, agreed. I thought it definitely came off as well as they could have hoped for it too. I know there were a lot of people that were very nervous the day before the draft. Adam Schefter put out a tweet that said, just got a tweet or a text from a friend who's involved in the mock draft, if you will, of the NFL draft. They went through the rounds to make sure, you know, in terms of tech, everybody was up to speed, cameras were working, mics were working, kind of a dress rehearsal, if you will, on the big event. And they got all the way to Cincinnati at number 1 before they had their first crash. So a lot of people were very nervous as to how this was going to go down. But, you know, the NFL, as again, the NFL can do, they pulled through and give us what I thought, you know, exactly like Dave said, was really the best thing that we were going to get given the circumstances. And it was fun to watch. So, all right, enough of the broadcasting and the numbers and the money talk. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of why people watch this stuff, man, and that's the picks. I didn't think this was a terribly interesting draft in terms of wheeling and dealing. I know there was a lot of scuttlebutt heading into this that people were going to trade up. Could Miami trade up because they're scared somebody's going to take Tua in front of them, or is somebody going to make a run at Burrow in the 1, or, could Jacksonville be trading up to 3 to get Justin Herbert, which would be an epically Jacksonville move? A lot of talk about that. Turns out it was much ado about nothing. Were you surprised about that? I mean, what was your take on the lack of moves, really, in the first round? It certainly didn't make for a lot of drama.
Yeah, well, I really think that what ended up happening was Cincinnati got pretty firm. That you had to give up the world to get number 1 because they knew they wanted Burrow. It just wasn't going to happen unless you gave them everything, and that wasn't going to happen for another team. So the moving into one thing was kind of a pipe dream for most people anyway. When you have somebody that everyone seems to think is a sure thing like Joe Burrow, it's hard to give that up when you need a quarterback. I mean, it's funny to say that Cincinnati needs a quarterback because Dalton has been there and has performed fairly well, but they felt the need to do that and go through. They wanted to move on. Beyond that, I think that had Tua not gotten hurt last year, had Tua not had the health questions, you would have probably had the drama. You would have had people wanting to move up into 2 and 3 and 4 to try and get ahead of Miami, to draft him, or have Miami try to move up so someone couldn't jump them. You and I talked a little bit ahead of time. There wasn't really that one guy that you can just look at and say, absolutely, that guy's a game changer. He's going to be the one that leads this franchise. Everyone had questions. Everything had either an injury question or they only had that 1 year where they did really well. It was in the system, whatever was going on. And I agree with that. I think it's something that we when you look at it from that end, that's what you have to deal with. There was really not that one. The only really sure thing that was there was Chase Young, and that dude is just going to be a beast when he gets in the NFL. So.
Yep. Well, and now he has a coach in Washington who really will know how to utilize him. So, I'm kind of indifferent on the Washington Redskins. That's my wife's favorite team. So she was pretty happy with that pick. But I like Ron Rivera. I hated the way things ended in Carolina. It was time. It was time for a change there, and I understood why they pulled the trigger on him. But that doesn't change the fact that he's a nice guy. I kind of likened that move to when the Bucs said goodbye to Tony Dungy. It was just time. And listen, I love Tony as much as anybody. I've met the man in person, had an opportunity to shake his hand, tell him how much I admire him. But, sometimes when things go stale, clubs have to move on, and that was, what Carolina did with Washington. But I digress. A lot of winners, I think winners on the weekend. Geez, man. Namely, I got to hand it to your Miami Dolphins. They came into the weekend as one of the most watched teams in the league, mostly because of all the draft capital they had with all the picks. And I thought they really leveraged that well. You hit on this just a second ago. Talk was all quarterback at 5. Who was it going to be? I think it would have been a grave mistake to take Justin Herbert at 5. It's nothing against Justin Herbert. He may turn out to be a perfectly fine prospect who does some great things for the Chargers. I just don't. I didn't buy it. He didn't bowl me over for a lot of his time at Oregon. He has the 1 year, but still finds a way to lose 2 games. I don't believe in the Pac-12. I get it. He's got all the intangibles, the big physique, the big arm, but I feel like more times than not, man, clubs fall in love with a body too much, particularly at the combine. And that's how you see a lot of these guys kind of skyrocket up the board. I know Herbert performed well at the Senior Bowl, so to his credit, good on him on that. But I thought Miami definitely made the right call to go to Tua because the game film is there, frankly. And I know that there are questions about his health. That was a bummer that they were not able to bring him in like they would under normal circumstances to really kick the tires on him physically. But, worst case scenario, man, you let him ride the pine for a full year and just get completely healthy and then put him under center. But the game film is there. You know what he's capable of. You know what he's capable of in the clutch. And honestly, with that, I think you could make the argument that maybe there's an argument to be made for drafting him over Joe Burrow. Once you get past Tua and Burrow, I did not think there was another quarterback in this draft that warranted a top 15 pick. I could, if I'm, looking at someone around 17, 18, 19, maybe I can look at Herbert there, but not before. Jordan Love, not even close. And we'll get to him here in just a little while. But, big winners. Who are the teams on your radar for that? Who did you think really scored well this weekend?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you about Miami. When they drafted him, and we didn't do the sexy stuff after the first pick. We didn't go in there and say, "All right, we're gonna pick up this guy, and it's all these skill position players." Our offensive line was not great last year, and we picked up a guy that has some health questions of whether or not he's fragile. So what do? We go in, we get that guy, and then we spend 3 out of the next 4 picks on offensive linemen. Let's build this up. Let's get this guy in front of a wall in front of him, so that it's not going to be our fault if something happens. We're gonna get him the talent in front of him to go through. But even if you go beyond that, in the 5th round, we went out and got Curtis Weaver. There were some questions about whether he conditions well or not, but over the last 3 years, he's had 34 sacks.
Yeah.
Trying to build up that defensive line, put somebody else next to Christian Wilkins.
Yep.
We also went out and traded and got Matt Breida from San Francisco, who's another talented guy. So, I think that we rocked it out completely.
Sure. Yeah, I liked the Weaver pick a lot because of where you got him. Because that was pick 155, somewhere along in there?
164.
164, there you go. So, that's a great value for that place in the draft. Honestly, I wish I could say the same thing for my Buccaneers. I was not terribly bowled over by their draft. I love the move up to go get Tristan Wirfs at 1. There were 4 quote-unquote can't-miss tackles in this draft. Tampa needed to get one of them. They were looking at the 4th and final guy getting, swiped right out from under their feet, so they did what they had to do to move up the pick and get their guy. I applaud them for that. It's when they get deeper into the weekend that I kind of took umbrage with some of their picks. I have no love for a running back out of Vanderbilt. I get it. He put up some numbers. There's definitely some flash value there, but you can call me a homer all you want. I wanted Cam Akers in the 2nd round for Tampa Bay and it's not just because he's a Knoll. It's because he's exactly what they need desperately in Tampa Bay's offense to go with their 42-year-old Hall of Fame quarterback and a great wide receiving core. He is a guy that's explosive. He's thick for his size. He's low to the ground, so he doesn't take a whole lot of hits a la like a Warwick Dunn. He's got moves. He's got vision. He's got tons of experience running behind a crap offensive line. And Tampa's offensive line isn't garbage, but it's not elite. It's going to be above average now, I think. And he catches the ball well out of the backfield. So he's the perfect fit to plug in that offense. And I think they really needed somebody like that to be the final piece of the puzzle. Listen, this was a great draft for defensive backs. It was a good draft for running backs, too. You just chose not to take one if you're Tampa Bay. The rest of the draft, I thought they did fine filling needs. They picked up some help at defensive line, picked up an edge rusher. So, I'm fairly happy with that. But I'm not going to put Tampa in my loser category, which is where I'm going to go here in just a second. But they certainly didn't bowl me away. Other teams that I thought were real winners on the weekend, Baltimore, I think did some really nice things. Just John Harbaugh, man, and that organization, they are steady Eddie. When they figured out what they had in Lamar Jackson and they pivoted their offensive philosophy to do what he does best, they're just such a smart organization. To get somebody like a Dobbins in the 2nd, now there's somebody who went out and got a running back that they can use. And now you're going to put that caliber of back in the backfield with Jackson and the pieces that they pick up on defense. I thought they were big winners on the weekend. This is going to really piss my wife off, but I thought the Dallas Cowboys did a really nice job this weekend getting somebody like a CeeDee Lamb to fall to you. I thought was really luck, but they went and grabbed him. Also did some other things nice for the weekend. And then Indianapolis, actually, I thought did some really nice things. And I'm going to touch on them a little bit more before the hour's up, but I was really happy with them.
I will say, though, my MVP of the draft, if you look at everything and you didn't get that moment of people running on the stage, but CeeDee Lamb, when he gets drafted and they go back to the video, he's FaceTiming with somebody with one phone, and the other phone starts to ring, and his girlfriend picks it up, and he doesn't even look over, man. He reaches over, snatches it from her hand, puts it back in his lap, glances at her briefly, comes back to his FaceTime, like nothing was going on. Like it was just a breeze right through, man.
Oh, yep, that was sweet. So he's, crap, it sucks that he went to Dallas. He's going to be a good freaking player, man. Oh, I think he's going to be a good player. But anyway, I digress. So big losers on the weekend. I beat on these guys a lot, and rightfully so. I'm looking at you, Jags. I think you pretty well just crapped the bed. I think you've crapped the bed for years now. It all began with you signing Blake freaking Bortles to an extension after he almost single-handedly lost you the AFC title game. I mean, I didn't understand that. I didn't get it. And then they went all in on him. Some of the stuff that they have done since, I just don't understand it. I pick on the Buccaneers all the time for being a horribly run organization, and to a large degree, I still think that they are. I know they pulled off the coup of the century and got Tom Brady this offseason, but I still don't think they're the brightest and the best when it comes to their front office and their player evaluators. But thank God we're not Jacksonville, and that's all I'll say about that. To take a cornerback at 9, I think was stupid. You know, you went all in this offseason on your young quarterback who you got in the 6th round, who admittedly added a little bit of spark for you last year in Gardner Minshew. So how do you reward that? You are shopping his running back, who, frankly, you do need to get rid of because he's a head case and a pill. But you're shopping as your best player on offense, not called your quarterback. You are, and then you turn around and get him no help. And I know they got him a wide receiver in the 2nd round, but God, I'd have to go back and look at the name. I didn't like the pick. I haven't liked anything that Jacksonville has done for some time, so they're kind of on my crap list. Other teams that I thought kind of underperformed this year for the draft, let's see here. Green Bay was another one, and we touched on this just a second ago. I don't understand the mentality with taking Jordan Love in the end of the 1st round. I get what you're trying to do. I get the idea, and that is that you're trying to replicate what you did with Aaron Rodgers. You had him there for 3 years before Brett Favre finally, hung it up and then came out of retirement to show really nasty emails to an intern in New York. I know. Yep. Well, that's
You worked that Florida State connection in, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, good old Brett. I like that guy a lot too. I really did. He was one of my favorite players back in the day. But anyway, all right. So Green Bay, they're trying to replicate what they did with Aaron Rodgers. You draft a young guy, you let him ride the pine behind your Hall of Fame quarterback for a couple of years, let him learn the ropes, and then hopefully you get as seamless of a transition to him away from your veteran as you did from Favre to Rodgers. It makes sense. The problem is you've got a fairly decent team around Rodgers now, and he's only 36. He's made it abundantly clear he wants to play until he's at least 40. For crying out loud, I mean, was Jordan Love that great that you had to pass on getting one of these running backs or one of these wide receivers to help out your guy who's still a baller now? I didn't understand that. So Jacksonville, Green Bay, they're on my crap list for stupid, kind of bonehead teams on the weekend. Dave, what do you got? Biggest losers.
Well, the biggest loser, I'm going to agree with you, Green Bay. They spent all of last year, it seemed like, trying to focus on last year. Let's build a team. Let's go through. And then Aaron Rodgers, again, got the crap beat out of him last year because he kept getting hit. Needed an offensive lineman. They didn't go and get that. They spent their 1st round on a quarterback. They did go and get a running back in the 2nd round with A.J. Dillon.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit there.
Yep.
But they didn't do anything when it came to trying to get something for him to run behind. They have a decent an okay offensive line. I guess there were some injuries last year that may have made that a little worse. But of course, I'm happy with them a little bit. They took Jonathan Garvin from the University of Miami with their last pick. I like Garvin. Garvin is a kind of a physical freak, and given a little more coaching, I think he'll get the opportunity to really shine out. The other one that I was really not. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. Back when the Raiders were the Raiders, the one thing you could count on was they were always going to take the fastest guy in the draft.
Yep.
Who's the guy that ran the fastest in the combine? And it's like what's the replacements?
Yes,
it's like they get the guy from the replacements every year.
We have barely begun to scratch the surface of Clifford Franklin. We have barely begun to scratch the surface of Clifford Franklin's greatness.
Dear sweet Lord, it's like Al Davis looked down and said, "That one." I mean,
don't throw it to stone hands. Yeah.
So you're gonna go out and get the guy that's the fastest on the field because you think that he could just outrun everybody and go get the ball, and it has not worked for them. John Gruden probably needs to go back to the broadcasting booth, quite honestly. I mean, it's God bless him. It is what it is, but
yeah, I didn't get the Ruggs pick at 12 either. I did not. That just didn't sit well with me. I laughed about it. I laughed about it all the way. I remember when We were watching the draft down in Tallahassee a number of years ago, and they took, Hayward Bay with like the 7th pick. Most people didn't even have him in the first round, but they took him
Darius
because he was
Hayward Bay.
fast. There you go.
That's right.
He's not even in the league anymore. Shocker there. But another move, speaking of kind of head scratchers, and I know a lot of people were high on this. I just wasn't one of them. I did not get Jalen Hurts to Philly in the 2nd round. I understand you need depth behind Wirtz because he's paper mache. Like you breathe on that guy and he's injured. Yeah, he's glass. He's glass Joe. But I mean, why Jalen Hurts? I mean, you're not getting a guy there who's super refined. I mean, listen, I love him. I love the player. I love the kid. I love Jalen Hurts for a lot of the reasons why I like Tim Tebow. And, great kid, upstanding leader, good kid in the locker room. Is very much a team first kind of guy. Great athleticism, ability to do some crazy things with his legs. That's great. But man, first and foremost, I kind of need you to be able to throw the football. And I know he did a bit more of that in Oklahoma this past year with Lincoln Riley, but everybody puts up big numbers in Lincoln Riley's offense. So I don't know, man. If I'm Philadelphia and I'm thinking I need a backup, it's not Jalen Hurts. And the only thing I can think of there is they think maybe they could have a diamond in the rough that they can refine. And if they need to go to him, then they can. Or, maybe they can trade him down the line. But that's a 2nd round pick you just burned, man. And there's a lot of stuff that you need. I didn't think that was the time or the place. What was your take on the Hurts pick?
I think, and I can't remember who's the coach in Philly right now.
Oh, that's Peterson.
Right. So, and he's done fairly well with quarterbacks in the past. I think that you give them the opportunity to work on them. Like what they're hoping is they're going to a little bit of a project. If you got to throw him in, he can run the ball, which is what they've tried to do with Wentz a little bit, which has kind of gotten him hurt. I think he break his collarbone and he tore his knee. Both of those were with him running the ball.
Right.
You got a little more durable guy doing that. I'm okay with the Hurts pick. I think that was at their position instead of trying to move back and get him and get more picks out of it. Let's plan on that end of it. I honestly didn't have an issue with it. I thought that one of the teams that did the best in the draft moving forward though is going to be Dallas.
Yeah.
They put so much stuff around Dak Prescott, making sure he had what he needed with getting CeeDee Lamb, getting another guard that they needed. They did it at a quarterback at the end of it, but they also tried to build up that defense a little more. They traded. They lost one of their cornerbacks to us. They went back and got someone to get him with Trevor Diggs. And I say us, I mean Miami, obviously. But going through and trying to replace what they had to try and build that back up, they're doing a good job of trying to get everything put back together to make a run at whatever they have to do. And obviously, they're looking over at Washington and seeing what Washington's picking up.
Right.
And Philly, of course, too. But I think the Hurts thing was fine. It is what it is for them. They knew they needed somebody behind Wentz, and without having to go back and get the guy that they'd already traded off to Jacksonville to bring him back in again with Nick Foles, they needed somebody to come in and take up that slack.
Yep. Well, kind of shifting gears from the head scratchers to the steals of the draft, and I think there were quite a few of these. Dude, Frank Reich in Indianapolis, man, I'm looking at them, and they could be building something out there. I love the Jacob Eason pick in the 4th round. You just signed Phillip Rivers to a 1-year deal. Clearly, you don't believe in Jacoby Brissett, and, fairly, I think that's reasonable. He has not shown you that he's a barn burner. He's a solid player, but, so far all he's really proven is that he's a solid role player. Jacob Eason is a guy with a lot of physical tools. Definitely did some things out west in Washington. Good on him. To get that guy in the 4th round, to now just sit on the pine and learn from a guy like Phillip Rivers, I really like that pick a lot. You shift gears back up to, you talk about a team that's putting pieces around their offensive stars to try and make a run. You look at what the Colts did in the 2nd round with adding Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. That's a lot of explosiveness to add to, again, the aforementioned Phillip Rivers. You put Taylor now in the backfield with a guy like Marlon Mack, who's done really, really well since coming out of South Florida. I'm really looking at the Colts saying, I got a feeling they might be somebody you don't really want to mess with here coming up pretty quick and in a hurry. Who were some of the teams that you thought really dug down deep in the draft and made some serious moves to improve their stock?
Yeah, I got a feeling that you're talking about with the Colts with Marlon Mack. I got a feeling he's probably going to end up being gone with this.
You think so?
I think that they're going to run with Taylor. Taylor's a 3-down back. Mac is not. And so I have a feeling that they'll either use him as a trade to try to get him to go through, or they'll just outright cut him to save what's going on. I mentioned before when it came to Miami being able to get Curtis Weaver in the 5th round, I thought that was a real, of course I'm a homer, and I'll
Sure.
admit that I have no problem with that. I also think that Minnesota went in and Miami had the most picks in the draft, and God bless poor Ken. And we all know Viking Ken. That's why you're chuckling. I know he is.
Well, and honestly, we totally bagged on the Vikings constantly picking up old quarterbacks in our last episode. So good on them. They went out and got some tools.
But they did well with being able to trade back. They got some more picks. They really, really reached out and got a lot. They're trying to build that back out again. I mean, after what were they in the NC Championship game 2 years ago?
Yep.
And still trying to get it to go through. Man, I mean, there was a few that went really well. I think the Giants did really well with being able to pick up Xavier McKinney in the 2nd round. I think that was a good pick. They needed it. They needed the help. I think that he is going to be very similar to his former backfield partner, who the Dolphins gave up, Minka Fitzpatrick. I think that'll go pretty well. Overall, I think that there was only a couple of teams that really, really reached, 2 or 3 that really just didn't seem like they knew what they were doing.
Let me ask you this: Would you put the New England Patriots in that category for not taking a quarterback?
I would say yes, except that any time that you doubt anything that Belichick does, you end up eating your hat.
Yeah.
He is the anomaly in everything when it comes down. He knows his system. He knows what he wants to put in there. I mean, you look at Brock Osweiler. Osweiler thrived in that system. It's like you were talking about Jalen Hurts with Oklahoma earlier. You take Osweiler and you send him out to Denver or Houston, and nothing. The Patriots have a way of being able to plug people into positions.
Osweiler actually was in Denver. Osweiler drafted him. Or
that's right.
Denver drafted Osweiler.
Who was the Patriots quarterback I was thinking of? That went out and just did nothing when he got
Matt
out.
Castle. You're thinking of Matt Castle.
Castle.
Yeah,
Okay.
signed a big money deal with Kansas City, stole a bunch
That's
of
what
money
it
from
was.
the Chiefs, and then was Mr. Backup ever since.
That's right. Well, and you look
And
at
he
Belichick,
also made a stop in Minnesota. At some point, Minnesota gave that man some money. Love you, Viking Ken.
There you go. So Matt Castle. You look at Matt Castle and he just didn't. It's that same thing. But you take Castle and you put him back in New England, and I'm sure that he would thrive in that situation. Belichick's just able to do that. I mean, you look at everything with Brady. Brady is you look at everything that's going on in Tampa right now, and Brady is doing everything he can to separate himself from Belichick to show that it wasn't just Bill and him working within Bill's system. It's him. He can do this. It was the two of them together. He was just as an equal partner as everybody else was.
Yep, no, agreed. Well, there were a couple of other stories that happened that did not have to do with draft picks. And one of them, I think, is potentially very significant, and the other is just kind of a bit of an anomaly. I'll start with Cam Newton. Now that the dust has settled, we all said in our last episode when we kind of touched upon the draft that nobody's really going to know what's going to go on with Cam Newton until after the draft. We want to see who gets drafted, who takes a quarterback, who doesn't. Well, that's come and gone. The Chargers were a spot that needed a quarterback. They just drafted a guy at 6. They're not going to bring in Cam Newton. I wouldn't think. I could be surprised on that, but I don't think they're going to bring in Cam Newton. There's been talk they'd love to have him down in Jacksonville. I don't think that's happening either. If you want to completely undermine your quarterback, who you just said we're fully behind, you will bring in Cam Newton. Now, granted, I wouldn't put it past the Jags front office to do exactly that, but I don't see him landing in Jacksonville. So that brings us back to New England. Is there a chance that man could sign in New England? And if so, what do you think a Cam Newton offense with the New England Patriots would look like? Or is there some other place you think he's going?
I don't think he ends up in New England. If they had wanted a quarterback, they would have reached out and got something there. I think they're happy with the two that they have there in New England. If I was a betting man, no, he doesn't end up in New England. He's going to end up in a spot that needs a backup quarterback, a place like maybe Dallas. They got a guy there that same type of style, running, throw the ball a little bit. You get him out there, you get him a 1-year deal, you get him the chance to show that he's a team player, and then like they did with Teddy Bridgewater. in New Orleans. You give him the chance to show what he can do, be a part of the team, carry the clipboard, show he's a team player, step in if there's a chance that there's something going on, they need some help with it, and go from there. Atlanta needs somebody back there with Matt Ryan. But it's in the division too for them. So for them, that's a big. It depends on what kind of score he wants to settle, because that's exactly what Jameis just did. He turned down more money with Pittsburgh to go play Tampa twice a year in New Orleans.
Yep. Well, and that's where I was going with the second story, and that's the one that I think is potentially a very big story. Real quick, I do before we step far away from Cam Newton, I do want to go back and address that. Listen. Cam's 30. He is not the player he was when he came out of Auburn to Carolina. He's just not. He's taken enough punishment in his day in the National Football League that he's just not going to be that player. Do I still think he can be a very effective player? I do. Like I said in our last episode, I don't think very highly of him as a passing quarterback. I think he's an average. His ability at throwing the football is very middle of the road. He is not a guy that is going to get you that strike on 3rd and 8 every time you need it. He's just not that guy. He never has been. When you take the ability to run the football away from Cam Newton, he is a diminished player. There is no denying that. The question is, can he still be a viable option as a starter in this league? And I think the answer to that is yes. The question is, who wants to take on the personality that is Cam Newton? Because I don't see him being that guy who can sit on a bench and be a team player. I just don't think he has that in him. If he's not the man and all eyes are not on him, I just don't think he can do that. And I think a lot of teams are probably eyeballing that and going, you know what, I just don't know if that's not more trouble than it's worth. So I don't know that Cam Newton is going to find another job. He might. I would say that the odds are in favor of him finding one, but if we're deep into the season and he's still unsigned, that really wouldn't shock me a lot at all. If he stepped away from the game for a year, I think that would be that wouldn't shock me. Maybe he comes back in a year or so. But
I think he won't sign with anybody until they get the chance to test him with their doctors themselves. You won't see that happen until the NFL reopens and they get the opportunity to actually bring people in.
Sure.
Because they're so concerned. Doesn't matter how many videos you want to post on YouTube or on your social media.
Sure.
So you won't see him sign until everything reopens at this point.
Right. Well, back to Jameis. I don't know that you could imagine a more nightmarish situation for Tampa Bay. He signs a 1-year deal. Listen, apparently they are really high on, Trayson Hill in New Orleans. A lot of people think he could be the heir apparent to Drew Brees when Brees retires, and all the scuttlebutt is that Brees is retiring. This is it. This is his swan song. So, Jameis is going to be in the most stable environment of his career. He's never experienced at the NFL level anything like the Saints organization. All right, the chemistry, that club has from Sean Payton all the way down, they're just the epitome of the professional sports organization. Jameis has never had that. He was drafted by Lovey, who was way past his prime. He was handed over to Dirk Cutter, who should have never, ever been a head coach. And then he transitions to the crew that's there now with Bruce Arians. And, freaking everybody and their grandmother gets hurt. And I rehashed all that. If you want to go back and listen to our last episode, I make the case for Jameis and why I still think he's got plenty of potential in this league. Now he's going to New Orleans. And he's going to get every opportunity just to rest up, get to know that organization, and they're going to get to know him. And if something happens that Jameis Winston is called upon to come off the bench and play for that team, whether it's because Drew Brees gets hurt or, what have you, you'd better look out. That could be something that comes back to haunt the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a very long time because he's 26 years old. Brady's 42. Brady signed a 2-year deal. There will not be a 3rd year. That will be it. Now you've got to go find your guy of the future, who you may have already had and just gave up. I'm gonna tell you, the Jameis Saints thing worries me as a Buccaneers fan. He could just be like Bridgewater, where he rides the pine for a year, makes a name for himself, and moves on. But I don't know. I don't know if they see in Jameis what everybody else saw out of him coming out of Florida State as the number 1 overall pick. That's dangerous. What say you?
I agree. I think that he's got some talent. I think that maybe the eye surgery's helped. It's been something that's followed him throughout his career where you see him squinting and everything else is squinting Jameis or squinting Winston or whatever it was they called him back in college where, maybe the eye surgery's helped and it'll help out where he doesn't feel like he needs to force a ball into some place or whatever's going on with him. I think that he signed with the Saints to prove a point. You could have gotten the same stability out of Pittsburgh. You could have gone up there. They've got pretty much the same thing going on. It's a big family environment. The head coach has been there for a while. You got a really good quarterback in front of you that makes those decisions, that quite honestly plays the same style that Jameis plays. He's got a big arm, but he's not afraid to get out there and run a little bit. And he may have learned a little more from his style of play from Ben Roethlisberger. But I think he made that move to New Orleans for just that reason. He's the kind of guy, I remember him from being in college when he was going through, he's the kind of guy that likes to prove points. He's the kind of guy that likes to go out there and make the name, do his thing. And I really think that's what's happened here is the Bucs. We talked about this in our last episode. The Bucs have traded their future for the present. You had a team that was on the move up a little bit. You've got your offensive line that probably need a little bit of help to keep him from getting killed, get you some depth, which they could have done with this draft.
Yep.
But instead, they went out and got a 42-year-old quarterback that won't play more than a couple of years. If that, I mean, who's to say that he doesn't get down there, offensive line gets hurt again, and he just gets beat up and decides, all right, guys, well, this has been fun. I enjoyed my year vacation in Tampa. Y'all enjoy Gronk.
Yep.
And go from there. And then now, what have you done? You've traded a guy that has at least another 10 years in the league for a guy that has 2, just because you think you might be able to make the Super Bowl or might be able to get a little further in.
Yep. And
we won't rehash what we talked about last time with all of that with Super Bowl or bust, but I think that it was a huge mistake on Tampa's part, and he's going to take that opportunity to shove it in their face if he can.
Yep. Oh yeah. Have no illusions. If he gets the opportunity to play, you will see a fully dialed in Jameis Winston when he steps on the field, particularly in Raymond James Stadium against the Buccaneers. He will be ready to prove a point. And if you've seen any pictures of him online lately, he's not Fat Jameis. Florida State fans, you'll remember that one from back in the day. He's not that guy, not even a little. My man is lean, mean, and he's ready to go. So anyway, gonna be very interesting to see how it all pans out. But all right, parting shot.
On a flip side of that,
yeah.
maybe just maybe you go back and look at this and say maybe this is what Jameis needed.
Maybe
he coming out, he's the first pick in the draft. He's going through. Maybe we don't know what happened behind the scenes at Tampa, and that they just didn't like his work ethic. And having been dropped, that's something that goes through.
Well, work ethic was never a Jameis problem. I think fit, surrounding cast was very much a problem for him in Tampa Bay. They did not have a star-studded offensive line to begin with, and the guys that they did have that were decent all got hurt. Everybody's like, oh, well, they've got $1 million wide receiving core in Tampa. And that's true. With Godwin, with Humphreys when he was still there, you look at Evans, all those guys got hurt last year. O.J. Howard, by all rights, is apparently dumb as a stump when it comes to football. If there's a nickel for every time that man ran the wrong route during a play, then we'd probably be retired from doing this podcast right now. So anyway, again, we don't want to rehash the last episode. That's all there. For my money, though, as a Buccaneer, and I'll close out on this topic, it is Super Bowl or bust. As a franchise, you haven't been relevant in 20 years. You haven't been. You have not been relevant since you won a Super Bowl in 2002. That was 18 years ago. You thought you had the man. Once Brady is gone, you are going to go back to irrelevancy. So you have a 2-year window to strike while the iron is hot, and you had better do it. And like I said before, just the playoffs, that doesn't cut it for me. You would have made the playoffs with Jameis. Go get me a Super Bowl. That's what I want. So, all right, parting shots on the NFL draft, man. Looking forward into the season, and it's looking like we might actually have one now. We'll touch on this in Dude Mail. We had somebody ask us about this. Provided that there is a 2020-2021 season, which team's stock did you think really took a boost this weekend? I know you mentioned Dallas, that you really like the pieces that they picked up around Dak. Anybody else out there that you think really took a step toward becoming a real contender now with this draft in 2020?
I think the Bills stepped up a little bit more with what they had. They added to what was already a talented defense, which was one of the best defenses in the league last year. They were able to add, I think, a couple of weapons on offense or something on offense to be able to kind of step that up a little bit. I think the Bills are going to be good, especially with New England probably taking a little bit more of a back seat with Brady being gone. I also think that Miami did as well. I think that they're, depending on how Tua plays, if Tua plays, they're going to sit him behind Fitzpatrick. and let him learn. Which, Fitzpatrick, when he comes in, man, he knows how to play the game.
Yep.
You give him the opportunity to teach a young kid how to play in the NFL and go through. Are they going to give him that chance? And it looks like if you look at what Flores and Greer are building down there, they're not in a rush. They're not in a hurry to go out and say, all right, we got to win right now. We got to get this done right now. They're building it the right way. They're getting their draft picks. They're pulling in what they need to pull in. They're getting the young players like Matt Breida when they make these moves. They go and get a 26-year-old cornerback that's in good shape. It is going to be very, very hard to pass on the Miami Dolphins next year. If you look at that as well, we also added in Raekwon Mitchell last year, Christian Wilkins, adding some more depth to the draft. I think the defense is going to be stout, and then we start working on what's going to happen with the offense as well. I think those are the two teams. The AFC's on the way back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the good old AFC. Bless their hearts. I'm going to go in with the Dallas Cowboys. I think they did some nice things over the weekend that really kind of put them up there. And then I'm going to stand by my Indianapolis Colts observation. Man, I have been a Frank Reich guy for years. I remember Frank Reich when he led the comeback versus the Houston Oilers when Jim Kelly was out. I liked him then. He put out a book not too terribly long after that was a really nice read. He was, for those who don't recall, the first starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. They took him in the expansion draft that year in 95, I believe it was. And I followed his career out there until eventually he retired. So he's one of the good guys in sports, and I've always been a right guy, and so I have followed him with great interest as a coach. I think he's building something special out there in Indianapolis, man. I like Phillip Rivers. He is, as a Florida State guy, that's hard to do because I watched him carve us up in Doak Campbell Stadium on more than one occasion. That man was a machine, and then he was every bit that good when he got to the NFL, and I think he deserves a shot at a title, and I'd like to see him get it. So Indianapolis, that is the team that I am looking at. And with that, we will put a bow on our NFL draft talk for the weekend and kick into some dude mail. So here we go.
You've got mail.
Okay, first question comes to us from Chris. Yo, fellas, just curious if any of you have had the chance to check out the final season of Star Wars The Clone Wars. If so, what are your thoughts? No spoilers, please. Wouldn't do that to you on the spoilers, particularly not with the season finale coming out this Monday, I believe it is, May the 4th. Man, I watched the Clone Wars, and I think, how did the new trilogy come out so awful? I mean, clearly you've got people in-house at Lucasfilm who know how to tell amazing stories. To your question about the Clone Wars, I thought the season got off to a little bit of a slow start. It was great to see it back. I did think it got off to a little bit of a slow start. I was not terribly high on the Ahsoka story, but once they bring it all together, about 3 seasons out from what's now going to be, or 3 episodes out from what's going to be the finale, they really shift gears from Clone Wars, the animated series, into the meat and potatoes of the story that's told in the prequels, and they really start to show you how they're going to blend all this together to tell one big epic story, and it's awesome. The writers have done a phenomenal job on this show. My man Dave Filoni, I beat the drum for him all the time, has done an amazing job putting a bow on this series. I hope this is the last season. They don't need to do another one after this. But I watched the penultimate episode today during my lunch break at work, and I'm jazzed to see what they're going to do to close this thing out. Dave, Clone Wars final season, where are you at? You seeing it?
About 5 or 6 episodes in, I've spent my quarantine time, as you might want to say, doing some other things. But I have tried to keep up with it at night. I've enjoyed it so far. I think you're right. It did start out kind of slow, but it's picked up to where I'm at now. I'm excited to see where it goes. Again, Dave Filoni doesn't seem to do anything wrong, so
right.
I'm happy with that.
From the stories that they tell on face value are just really, really well assembled and well put together. But there's some stuff in this show that really, I heard somebody say once that the Clone Wars make the events of episode 3 really hit home from a heart standpoint. And I think that's true. I think that when we all watched Revenge of the Sith, number one, it was just a horribly directed film. George is a great visionary, but he can't direct real life people. He just can't. and it was just, it felt like a flat film. It felt like a flat film that was horribly directed and horribly acted. What gets lost in all of that is the fact that there were 10 years between episodes 2 and 3, and this show fills in that gap. And when you go back and you watch all 7 seasons of this show and you see everything that these guys went through, the clones and the Jedi, side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And there's a line in the final season of the show, and I won't spoil it, but basically the line goes, these guys are loyal. The clones, they are as loyal as it comes. They never forget who stood with them on the battleground. They never forget who looked out for them, who took care of them. And, loyalty is held in the highest regard in the minds of these men. And then you flip you turn over to episode 3 and Palpatine flips a switch and erases all of that. And just literally in the blink of an eye, these guys turn like dogs on their masters. And the heartache of that is felt a lot more by way of the stories that are told in the Clone Wars. And you're seeing that played out to a perfect crescendo in the final season. So if you were ever a Star Wars fan, man, Clone Wars is really, really just a nice addition to the canon. So going to be sad to see it go, but I'm happy to see that it's going to do the Peyton Manning thing, John Elway thing, and ride out on the high note. So, all right, shifting gears to our next question. This comes to us from Seth. It seems there's been a lot of talk lately about that we could actually be nearing a comeback for sports. Like, really? Thank you for enunciating that. Which major leagues, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, PGA, etc., do you feel has the best chance of coming back this summer? Thanks for taking my dude mail and stay safe. Dave, you got thoughts on this? A lot of stuff happening down your way with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think baseball probably got the better chance. Basketball, if they do some things right, I think they can, but their season's pretty much over at this point. Meaning calendar-wise. I think baseball does. Baseball looks like they've got a plan that's been kind of floating around right now where instead of American League, National League, they have got, where they kind of just put everybody into East, Central, and West and give them the opportunity to go out and play. Obviously be a pared-down schedule, but it'd be baseball. And I think that they probably have the best chance to go through, and then you'll start seeing some spring stuff, some summer stuff open up for practices and trying to find a way to make sure everybody's got that taken care of. But I think baseball's got the better chance, and I'm really looking forward to it if they do.
Yeah, man, shout out to our boy Scott, who's the baseball guy of this crew. Wish he was here to field this question, because I'm sure he would probably stand in solidarity with you on that. I'm really ready to listen to some baseball games, man. I'm wholeheartedly with you on that. I really, really am. Some of my favorite things to do this time of year is really close out my day. And once I'm done with doing all the crap I got to do, and we've had dinner as a family, and dishes are done. If I've got writing to do or podcast to edit or whatever, I do all of that. And then there is just something to be said for settling in somewhere with just an ice cold beer or a nice bourbon, or even just something as nice as a good full-body cup of decaf coffee. I don't drink coffee late at night. Keeps me up, but I digress. But listening to a baseball game. I got the MLB At Bat app on my phone. To me, there is no sport in the world that translates better to audio than the game of baseball. It's some respects, it's just more fun to enjoy via the audio medium than watching it on television. So I miss that. I really, really am ready for that to come back. As far as leagues that I think have a better chance than others, I think the PGA has announced that they are going to try and come back on June 11th. I would expect that would probably go over pretty well for a lot of the same reasons that Dave just indicated. They are set up as a sport to just be able to facilitate that better than a team sport where you're going to have 50, 60 some odd guys out on a field running after each other. So I would expect the PGA will probably be one of the first. Thankfully, my guys in NASCAR, it's looking like they're going to be back. It was reported today, being, what is today, Tuesday, that the governor of North Carolina, it's looking like he's going to sign off on them running the Coke 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway for Memorial Day weekend in front of, no fans. So, these are drivers who climb in a car by themselves. They're decked out head to toe in fire suits, helmets, gloves, the whole spiel. Same thing with all your pit guys who go over the wall. So I think that is a sport, or any motorsport, really, when you get down to it, that could pull that off. And I hope they do, because Lord knows I am certainly ready. All right, next question comes to us from Who do we have here? This is Marcus. Hey, dudes, please tell me that the three of you have been watching The Last Dance on ESPN. This has been absolutely incredible. As sports documentaries go, this has been right on up there with one of the best, in my humble opinion. What are your thoughts? You guys are about the age that you remember this franchise and you remember this dynasty. So what are your thoughts so far, 4 episodes in on The Last Dance? Dave, you been watching The Last Dance?
Absolutely. I caught up with episodes 3 and 4 last night. The Rodman stuff was fantastic.
Yeah.
Of course, they weave Jordan throughout all of it. But yes, the fact that they had to go to Vegas and pull Rodman out of a hotel room.
I remember that. I totally remember that.
With Carmen Electra hiding behind some sheets is epic. One of those things that just, oh my gosh. So yes, it has been fantastic. That was really what made me a basketball fan growing up.
Sure.
Was being able to watch Jordan. I remember for, I think it was my 16th birthday, you guys got me a Michael Jordan rookie card.
Yep.
You and Todd and some other guys, and it was, of course, it was a baseball rookie card. But it was...
That's still one worth tucking away.
And I still have it. I just was going through some boxes the other day and found it sitting out there. But it's fantastic. It is really, really good. It's one of the few things that I've watched over the last few weeks that has caught my interest, and I've not had to look at the clock every now and again.
Yeah, no, I wholly agree. The Rodman stuff was definitely a lot of fun. Big thing that I took away, and this actually made national news, the Isaiah Thomas stuff with the Pistons. And the fact that when the Bulls beat them for the first time in the Eastern Conference Championships in the, I guess it was 91, the Pistons walking off the court without shaking their hands, and just how much that pissed off Chicago. I'm inclined to agree with Jordan and company on that one. I know Isaiah Thomas kind of made his plea that, listen, things were different back then. That's the way that the Celtics were to us when we took the baton from them, and frankly, that's the way we were going to be to the Bulls when they took the baton from us. It was their time. And we didn't think anything of it. We're sorry that they did. Jordan just called him an a-hole, and that was that. So I thought that was entertaining. But yeah, the Rodman stuff was definitely a lot of fun. I can remember that. I remember that trade. I remember when Rodman was traded from San Antonio to Chicago, and we all said it. Like, the big story was, okay, now we're going to find out just how good the Zen Master really is. Phil Jackson is a guy who's known for being able to take pretty much, he's like the Belichick. He can take anybody and plug them into his system and make them a success. Now we're going to find out just how true that really is. And sure as shooting, man, it's exactly what they did. And Rodman was a freak show, but they knew how to dial him in. They knew how to get the best out of him. And the rest is history. So yeah, The Last Dance, man, I've thoroughly enjoyed that one. That's been a good one. I'm a sucker for a good documentary anyway. Built America series on History Channel, by the way. Excellent stuff. But yeah, Last Dance has been really good. All right, last question in our Dude Mail segment comes to us from Kyle. I know I'm a little late to the party, but I just got finished watching the season finale of Better Call Saul. Holy crap! All caps there. Can't wait to see how they land this plane in the final season for season 6. Just hoping we don't have to wait 2 years to get that. Who's with me? I am. I watched the season finale. Better Call Saul was freaking off the chain this year. Know a lot of people kind of thought Better Call Saul was a slow show when it first started, and it was. It's because they're building an enormous freaking story. You got to remember, this isn't just about Jimmy McGill's transition to becoming Saul Goodman. This is about what happens with Kim Wexler. It's about what happens to Gustavo Fring. It's about what happens to Mike Ehrmantraut. It's a big, big, big story. And now you're seeing that hit the crescendo. The finale was absolutely off the chain. My wife and I both, jaws were on the floor when it was over. We're already counting the days until the final season starts. Again, hoping that's going to be next year. Some of the stuff they did with Kim this season, I just didn't see coming. And that's such a testament to the writers and what they can do with building a character. You totally think you know which direction this is going to go and that they're going to zig with the story, and instead they just zag and throw you for a complete loop. They did in Breaking Bad. They're doing it again here. Yeah, man, it was a great year for Better Call Saul. Dave, you still in on this show, or have you checked out?
I'm waiting until it gets to Netflix. I know that it's actually already on. The earlier seasons are, and I've watched I think the first 3 seasons of it.
Okay.
I'm waiting for it all to kind of get through. As I start to run out of things to get into, I will probably pick it up. You you have browbeat me long enough about this to keep up. So I'll catch up with it and finally and go through, but I'm not in any rush at this point in time to get it done.
Well, Gustavo Fring was without a doubt one of the best things about Breaking Bad, and you're really seeing just how true that was. Mike was also a great part of Breaking Bad, and what you're learning about him throughout the course of 6 seasons of Better Call Saul is just, man, when he gets... Well, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen Breaking Bad. If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, what's wrong with you? but I digress.
I think we can give spoilers of Breaking Bad at this
point.
It's been long enough.
No. Well, this one is a particular biggie, and I'm not going to drop it. But anyway, Mike was hands down one of our favorite characters, a lot of people's favorite characters from Breaking Bad. And all they do is just make him better in Better Call Saul because he gets so much screen time. It's a great show. Can't wait for the final season. All right, that's going to take us down to the wire. Let's do some White Flag. Here we go.
White flag.
Okay, White Flag, as everybody knows, is the segment where we kind of tell everybody what's on our radar heading into the next couple of weeks, things we're excited about, geek stuff, sports stuff, guy stuff, you name it. It's just whatever keeps us up at night. So, Dave, what's going on, man? What are you looking forward to in the upcoming weeks?
Well, my friend, since we won't have anything between now and then, I will say this. May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, I hear you.
At which point, everything gets released on Disney+. All of the movies are there to get the opportunity to go through. I'm hoping... Probably not going to be the case, but I'm hoping we get some of the original theatrical releases instead of just the digitized.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I now have the opportunity to do some things I really wanted to George Lucas versions.
Yeah.
But that being said, all of it will now finally be on Disney Plus for my perusal. I will still be away from work at that point in time, so that may be what I do for the day.
Well, I can cast no stones at George for the re-releases because I'm getting ready to put out the 3rd incarnation of my debut novel, Mako. So I can cast no stones from that glass house. But what I can tell you is, for Mako readers, 3rd time's going to be it's going to be nice. I'm really excited about what Theogony Books is doing with this trilogy, and then what we're going to do with this series moving forward. For those who missed it, I released the new Mako cover on social media this week. God,
fantastic, by the way.
Dude,
fantastic.
Man, their cover guy over there is on freaking point. And listen, not to talk, writers' shop stuff, but as authors, it's hard to find cover guys who can really nail your vision. Like, listen, there are tons of really skilled cover designers out there who can get you a good-looking science fiction cover, a good-looking space opera cover, a good-looking zombie thriller. It doesn't necessarily mean it's reflective and indicative of your story. Man, I think this guy just absolutely nailed the new Mako cover. So for those who have not read Mako, that's going to be coming out May 22nd. The next 2 books in that series are then going to rapid fire out in June and July. And then the brand new book in that series is going to drop in August. So really, really excited about that. Back to White Flag for me. Well, I am looking forward to Mako 2020. That would be coming out on May the 22nd. Touched on that. And from there on out, I'm looking forward to getting life back to normal in the midst of a move. So for those who haven't followed me on social media of late, my wife and I are in the process of moving into a new house. And moving, particularly when you're not in your 20s anymore and you're doing it yourself, well, it's just kind of freaking hard. So really ready to get through that, get settled in.
Ready.
Oh my God, dude. Icy hot all the way. All the way, dude. So, okay, thanks as always to my buddy Dave Daniels for sticking around to tell some jokes and crack some knocks on me getting old and talk a little bit of football in between while we're at it. Thanks to the listeners for checking us out. As always, we really appreciate you leaving reviews on the show. 5 stars, comments, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you listen. If they let you leave reviews, do it to it. We really, really appreciate that. If you want to find out more about us, do it online, dudesinhyperspace.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at The Hyperdudes, or shoot us an email. If you got a question for our next Dude Mail segment, we'd love to get that. dudesinhyperspace@gmail.com. Until next time, you guys take care of yourselves, stay safe, wash those hands, and we'll catch you on the flip side. See ya.
See ya.